Welcome back to First Look Asia on this Monday morning. Now, the slowing economy in parts of Asia has left some in vulnerable industries worried about their jobs.
For instance, in Singapore, the labor movement has voiced concerns about more layoffs. Over in China, authorities are predicting the biggest retrenchment program in nearly 2 decades.
As it stands, job cuts have hit big players in the oil and gas industry, and several financial powerhouses have begun trimming their global headcount.
So how can you ensure that you remain relevant and attractive to employers despite a downturn? Well, many human resource experts think it's really about how you market yourself and how you take charge of your career. And to discuss all of that with us is Anthony Thompson. He's the Regional Managing Director of Greater China and Southeast Asia from recruitment specialists PageGroup. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So my mom, she's a bit of an anomaly. She's worked at the same company for 30 years. That is rare now because people often hop to different jobs. So for someone who's in the midst of that transition, can you start off by telling us what should they try to do to get back into the workforce?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's important to put some context around the market that we're in as well. There's certainly a healthy level of negative sentiment due to various macroeconomic factors. We have seen some retrenchments, but recruitment activity from our perspective is still reasonably good. So I think job seekers can continue to be quite optimistic about opportunities, although they need to be very organised and well structured in terms of the strategy and plan that they have in terms of looking for those jobs. And speaking about your mum is an interesting scenario because that is very topical both in Singapore and elsewhere in the world. And it's about being self-aware and revisiting your own profile, coming up with a relevant CV, embracing new media or social media such as LinkedIn and having a profile that's going to allow you to stand out and have your personal brand be recognised.
So you're talking about the strategy maybe changing based on your work experience and perhaps qualification too, yeah?
Yeah, I think if you look at things perhaps in 3 different groups, looking at recent graduates through to those who have maybe 10 to 15 years experience and then those who are often labelled more mature age workers, the background, the experience and how you can value add is quite different. So the approach that you take needs to be different as well. Now you also need to be able to modify and tailor that approach to suit the kind of position that you're looking for, which might differ depending on the technical requirements of the role or other aspects of the position in question.
So how can somebody make themselves stand out from the crowd? What hard tips do you have for people?
I think a very important thing to do is to be prepared to be self-critical. Be aware of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. None of us are perfect, so attempting to show that you're able to do everything is not the right approach. What you should be doing is focusing on strengths, make them as specific as possible so that when that profile or your brand is in front of a potential employer, it's very clear what you bring to the table.
Should that be a self-evaluation or should you actually engage someone to help you through that
I think
phase?
Provided you're able to swallow your pride, I think seeking advice from others, looking at perhaps previous performance reviews and coming up with a clear, concise and relevant brand profile is really important.
Now, we keep talking about this word brand, and we often associate it with consumer products.
Yes.
But when you talk about a person, what does branding mean?
Yeah, well, we all have one, whether we like it or not. We've all got a personal brand. It's just a matter of what we do with that, and it's essentially who you are. It's what you've done, what you've accomplished so far, how you carry yourself. Now, the important thing about that personal brand is it needs to be authentic. There's no value in pretending to be someone that you're not or pretending to have attributes and characteristics that you don't possess. So the need to be authentic is important, but also very clear and strong in terms of focusing on the areas that are real positives.
Yeah, so in other words, trying to sell that brand of yours.
And that could be anything from looking at your CV or your LinkedIn profile. These things need to be an accurate reflection of what someone's done throughout their career, but it's a selling document. That is how you're taking yourself to market.
Okay, and you have a different brand, of course, according to how much experience you have. So can we go through, for example, if you're a fresh grad, how do you discover what your brand is?
Yeah, it's a good question. Difficult because you don't have the same track record of success as others do. However, you have qualifications or whatever academic experience you've got. We as a recruitment company tend to look for graduates who've got experience outside of purely the world of academia, and that could be sport, it could be work experience, it could be internships, those things all combine to create the personal brand for a graduate. And I think it's also important to just think of the little things that perhaps we were all taught by our parents and grandparents. Look people in the eye, present yourself properly, have a firm handshake. It all sounds old-fashioned, but those little details really count.
Would you recommend a fresh graduate not look at maybe the monetary returns and just look at maybe the prospects a job could offer?
Yes, absolutely. There's limited value in graduates looking at purely dollars in the short term. What you should be looking for is where is the career path and where is that going to take me? Now, linked with that as well is many graduates will look for the massive multinational as the organisation where they want to start their career. That's fine, some great opportunities there, but it's very competitive. There are wonderful opportunities with smaller or medium-sized companies as well, where perhaps the exposure could even be broader. So graduates need to be open-minded and flexible in their
You have to pay your dues, essentially.
You do.
Okay, so what about if you're in your mid-30s or 40s? How do you brand yourself?
Well, I think that's where you really are very much looking at a track record of success. You need to have measurable achievements that you can demonstrate and illustrate both on social media, in a CV, and particularly at interview when questioned. So talking about the generic role that someone performs is fine, but that doesn't allow you to stand out. So you need to be able to say, in my sales role, we increased sales by X%, or whatever the specific function was. So drawing some kind of tangible outcome from what's been achieved in the past.
Okay, now let's move on to the final category, people in their 50s and maybe early 60s even. What would you recommend for them?
And incredibly popular topic at the moment, and rightly or wrongly there are misconceptions or unconscious bias associated with mature age workers that energy levels are going to be lower, or there's a lack of sophistication in terms of the understanding of technology. Now, the reality is there are many people I know who are over 50 who have fantastic energy levels and great tech savvy, but those misconceptions do need to be dispelled. So if you are someone in that demographic and you are not comfortable with social media or modern technology, you need to become comfortable with it. And it's not that difficult. It's an investment in time. You have friends, you have family, many people around you, or even professionals to help with this.
We're running out of time, but very quickly, give us, again, a few hard tips for people who want to rebrand themselves in this job market.
Be self-aware, self-critical, but then focus on your strengths and be very specific about them. In your job search, you need to be organised. You need to have a strategy which allows you to be proactive and allows you to be persistent and follow up. Do whatever you can within reason to stand out, but it needs to be honest, authentic, genuine.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Anthony Thompson, Regional Managing Director of Greater China and Southeast Asia from recruitment specialist PageGroup, with some advice on how you can build branding for yourself, capitalize on that to stay relevant in a downturn and find that job you want, even if you're being retrenched.
Some great tips. And on that note, we are done for today, the 14th of March. Join us again tomorrow for your regular dose of world, business, and sports news.
Remember, if you've missed